Professor Dieter Rombach is the Director of Business Development of the Fraunhofer Institute of Experimental Software Engineering. He was the Executive Director of Fraunhofer from its foundation from 1969 for nearly 20 years, and has not only authored more than 200 scientific publications, but received numerous awards and is a sought-after scientific advisor to businesses, industry, and the government. Please welcome our first speaker, Professor Rombach.
So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor to present the youngest and also smallest city in today's panel on the march towards digitalization. But then again, it's not that small because we are connecting the city with the rural areas around it. And let me tell you, being small has not only disadvantages, also has advantages, because we can implement models sometimes with a little bit less red tape. One of the first things that drove us to connect city and landscape and rural areas is the mega trend of demographic change, where you see lots of things are going to change over the next 20, 30, 40 years. In 2050, more than 35% of people will be elderly, requiring more services, and at the same time, the services are disappearing from rural areas. So in summary, this megatrend will have, as a result, a strong move from rural areas to city. The reason is lack of services like mobility, shopping, health, etc. And also the cities are suffering because house prices go up and the cost for infrastructure is increasing. The second megatrend is digital transformation. You have heard a lot about this today, and I think it bears one of the opportunities to connect cities and villages more together. For instance, in the area of health, you can provide things like telemonitoring, connecting people that have chronic diseases like heart diseases, so they only have to go to the hospital if there is a problem occurring. This chart only shows you that digital transformation in the context of city and villages is not only related to health and mobility, it's related to almost everything you can imagine in our daily private and commercial life. However, we have learned there is two central issues, acceptance criteria, without which these things will be not accepted. The first one is we have to convince our people in the city and areas that there is an add-on value for all these services, and secondly, we have to make sure that security, now from the point of data security, is taken serious, that we actually allow them to maintain ownership of their data. First project is the city project. This is resulting from the Bitkom competition you all know about, and as you can see, we were second in that, but we still are driving this ahead. We have established an infrastructure with a CDO, with a company to drive projects forward. Now, projects are run in all of these 10 areas. I just want to mention 4: distance education for handicapped people, autonomous driving of buses between train station and university campuses, renewable energy management in the city area, and also assisted living and telemonitoring for chronically diseased and elderly people. We have the motto of hardly digital, so wholeheartedly digital, and what that means is we take the concerns of people serious and we take their concerns about data privacy serious, and that has led to a big support of our campaign, our activities in our city and rural areas. Now, the reason why we believe we can be one of the leaders in this transformation is because of the strong infrastructure in terms of science and technology. What's called Science Alliance is 2 universities, a large number of institutes and high-tech companies, and most of all in the important areas of engineering, IT, and machine learning. Now, this is our program. You see the heart, and this has resulted in the support of all people, residents in the area. If any one of you has followed the campaign in social media while we were running for this digital city competition, you will see that we had some enormous support, much higher than in other cities, and also this is maintained until today. Now, Smart Rural Areas is the second project we are running with big support from our state government, and here we try to apply the same digitalization principles and applications to the rural area. And this is very much funded by our state and also politically supported. Now, this is the reason why we engage besides city also in rural areas, because the majority of our people, not only in our state, but in general, live in rural areas. And in the context of rural areas, we are focusing on topics like health, of course. We are focusing on topics like agriculture, farming. We focus on topics like shopping, like trade. We are shopping on health and energy management. Now, in the context of this rural area project, currently we are focusing on 5 topics. We see here communication, mobility, public services like e-government and shopping. The 5th area is health, but in this area actually we focus on the implementation in the city environment, and once we have proven solutions, we will then also roll them out in our rural areas around the city of Kaiserslautern. Now, just as a very small example, what's currently already in operation is to support shopping from regional providers. So we have something like an ordering app where people can put in all the offerings, small stores, farmers, to offer this to people in the area, and people can actually electronically shop. Now, in terms of delivery, I think we have a not unique but rarely used concept. We don't have a professional shipping company, but commuters who work in the city and drive home in the evening voluntarily take goods and bring it to people. By the way, there is a nice side effect that from some of these villages we get reports that for the first time they have actually met their neighbors. So from my point of view, that's also a nice example that IT does not necessarily lead to isolation. You need all these discussions, but you can actually create communities by combining shopping and delivery on a voluntary basis. Now, a third part is this farmers' mobile market, where they bring things to the people in rural areas, which strengthens the local small shops and farmers. Now, what are we doing as Technology Institute? We provide a technical platform because we don't want to go with this multiple platforms for all applications. We want to have one technical platform. This is the yellow or green part, and that is then the basis for other companies or spin-offs to create individual business models and jobs. Now, my future vision is that we have a Germany or Europe of regions, that we have a better integration of cities and surroundings, and I believe that will also help to get away with the competition for residents, for costs between cities and villages. And personally, I believe no elderly person should be required to move from a village where they lived for 50 years to the city just because the services for health, etc. are not available. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this fascinating contribution and perfect introduction into the topic. Our next guest is Jochen Partsch. He's the Lord Mayor of Darmstadt, Darmstadt being the winning city of the Bitkom competition Smart City. He is a green politician from the heart, being active in the field since the 70s and has been elected Lord Mayor in 2011. Please welcome Jochen Partsch.
Yeah, welcome to the city of Darmstadt. Our city has always been a curious and cosmopolitan place. The Mathildenhöhe, as the center of Art Nouveau and the life reform movement at the beginning of the 20th century, will become a World Heritage Site. That proves that we were innovative by nature. Already 1 century ago. Now we are designing a new, namely a digital life reform. Here you see the Mathildenhöhe, but Darmstadt is also a city with a very challenging history. We as a city, we had to reinvent ourselves completely after World War II. On 9/11/45, during only one single night of bombing, Darmstadt lost more than 10,000 people, its face and, in a way, its identity. A completely new idea of the city had to be developed with incredible optimism. This characterizes the self-conception of Darmstadt until today. and is the basis for testing digital ideas without concerns. In 1997, this finally culminated in choosing the official title and urban development model City of Science. Since then, Darmstadt is growing swarm city, and that will be probably not change until at least 2050. The digital city is the next level of the City of Science, is its 4.0 version. But there's not only a dark side of the moon, also the growth of the city has its drawbacks. Land use conflicts, traffic problems and housing shortage are the keywords that have been mentioned. Here you see the famous comet Churyumov-Gerasimenko. It was from the IESE, located in Darmstadt, controlled. Space is limited in Darmstadt and we cannot enlarge it, only use it smarter and more sustainable. If you come to Darmstadt, you are part of the German Silicon Valley, the greater. Hardly anywhere in Europe you will find such an enormous concentration of IT competence, 2 Fraunhofer institutes, 2 large faculties of the universities, the Software AG, and the most important R&D location of Deutsche Telekom. That's why we took part of the Bitkom competition with great enthusiasm and team spirit. For us, digital projects are the key to a more efficient organization of urban communities, and second, and more benefits for the citizens and customer friendliness. The basis for this is a strong local ecosystem with a municipality, our utility companies, science, economy and society. This network has already made us 3-time Wirtschaftswoche Future City #1 in Germany, #1 ICT city of our size in Europe, and last but not least, the digital hub cybersecurity of the federal government. But how do we really want to implement the project? Darmstadt already has excellent conditions and also some innovative services to become a real digital city. Some examples: we have a real-time open data platform for all traffic data and a test track for autonomous driving. We equipped new residential areas with exemplary low-car mobility concepts, including digital services. We are one of the cities with the best broadband and Wi-Fi network in Germany. Concretely, on the basis of the open data platform, we are building up a system of sensors to promote traffic improvement in the sense of optimal traffic light control and especially car-to-X communication. Here are many apps conceivable that are based on it. Public transport is, together with cycle traffic, the only promising possibility to solve urban jam problems over the long term. At short notice, we do bring Wi-Fi to all buses and trams. Next step will be the electrification of the bus system and the launch of semi-autonomous and autonomous solutions. Another huge issue is the impact of e-commerce on the city structures. In a nutshell, our neighborhoods are congested by parcel service cars. The digital city has the duty to invent answers that help to centralize the currents and implement a zero-emission delivery. Darmstadt has a long tradition in the area of innovative housing construction. The Passive House was born in Darmstadt. The Technical University Darmstadt has won the US government's Solar Decathlon Prize twice. And currently, the Fraunhofer ICD is a powerhouse for smart living and housing application. In cooperation with the municipal Bauverein AG, we will roll out such solutions on a larger scale. Education, a key sector and a difficult task at the same time, because it is not enough just to put hardware in the classrooms and to believe that everything is fine. This is about changing the educational landscape as a whole. The central actors are the federal states because they determine the curricula. In the field of digital participation, we are already a pioneer in Germany. For instance, very early we have introduced digital approaches to citizens' budgeting. Internet-based application will more and more complement our communication in the local community. More delicate is the topic of digital authorities. We are working on an e-government platform with service accounts. A very promising field of the digital city is the public utility providers, because we have direct influence here, and the municipal companies are traveling on a large scale within a city with their vehicle fleets. With changes to quite a few points, you can achieve far-reaching results and achieve a good database for further applications. But finally, this applies to the entire network of the municipal economy, especially under the umbrella of our utility company, Entega. Using sensors, we can achieve enormous increases in efficiency, additional knowledge about environmental data and the condition of the roads, and immediate savings of resources. Only those who can influence things can change them. Our urban clinics are therefore the ideal access point to the e-health car theme. The inner city hospital site is being rebuilt and modernized. We use this change to work on the digital hospital on the future. Finally, the area of trade and culture. Darmstadt has a very popular and diverse central business and culture district. The doers at the City Marketing Association have long since awakened and combined the best of both worlds, digital and real analog. Among other things, a trading and distribution platform for local organic products is in the pipeline. A good listeners, you certainly noticed that I didn't pick up one special USP from Darmstadt yet. Cybersecurity, having the Fraunhofer SIT and the CRISP in Darmstadt, we are simply world-class. However, being one of the capitals of cybersecurity is not an end in itself. On the contrary, it is a clear chain that decides on the success and failure of digitalization. IT security generates data security, generates protection of personality rights, generates trust, and without trust, no success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Partsch, for this contribution. From Darmstadt, we'll now journey to Amsterdam and welcome Frans-Anton Vermast. He's the Senior Strategy Advisor for Low Carbon and Connected Urban Planning and has been in this position since 2008. He specializes in developing smart cities as open and user-centric innovative platforms. And he's also a regular visiting speaker and guest lecturer at several universities. So please welcome Mr. Vermast.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Can I start off with asking you who of you consider themselves to come from a smart city by raising hands? Wow, that's less than 10%. So does that mean that 90% of the audience come from dumb cities? I don't think so, and this is one of the problems we have with the definition of smart cities. There's over 300 definitions of smart cities, and the definition we use in Amsterdam is basically to increase and improve the livability of the people who live, work and play there. And what we think, smart city on itself, it's not an end goal, it's not an objective, but it's important to go through the journey and learn from your mistakes and learn from the uncertainty. What we basically do, we're an open innovation platform, and the things we do is to connect people who have ideas or who have solutions to offer. Then we try to accelerate the project. And the last but not least, the challenging is in the strengthening of the problems and the solutions to scale them. The ingredients is the political leadership, but most importantly, it's the holistic approach or the cross-silo approach. Let departments work together. Nowadays, when we talk about electrical vehicles, it's not only a source of mobility, it's also a source of energy. And basically, we have developed 3 criteria for smart cities. It has to improve the efficiency of local government. And when I say local government, I'm not only talking about the city of Amsterdam, I'm talking about the Amsterdam metropolitan region. It has to grow the local economy. And last but not least, it has to improve the quality of life of your citizens, your end users. It's all about collaboration. So public, private, people partnership. So we switched from triple P to quadruple P. And we try to engage the knowledge institutions as well, both to do the research up front, but also to do the research why project failed. And we learned from our mistakes. And we learned from our biggest mistake in the past, and sorry for our guest from London, but that was selling Manhattan to the British. When we did that, we learned a lot, and we had the golden age and the prosperity. Again, I can't emphasize enough, it's an open platform, and my colleagues from Kaiserslautern and Darmstadt already mentioned, it's all about bottom-up approach. It's engaging those citizens and make sure they are involved. Because if you do not have a solution that the end users will take, there's not going to be a solution for the long term. It's identifying as well on a very local level what the needs are of these people, what the needs are of certain neighborhoods. And that can be simply just a playground, or it can just be changing the schedule of waste collection. The imperatives for Amsterdam Smart City are an open, symmetrical consumer communication network. We try to create an environment for startups and for those people who can improve the quality of life. And last but not least, and this one, I give you the full 20 seconds to read this one. And again, start sharing those data. So not only sharing data within your organization, but start to share data with companies like Google and TomTom. By the use of Google and TomTom, we can reduce the time that people are looking for a parking space within the city center of Amsterdam, which is the biggest source of CO2 pollution. If you open up your data as a government, but also as a company, there are developers out there, and they can make apps that will benefit the citizens. We have a competition in Amsterdam called Apps for Amsterdam, where every month somebody is chosen that has developed the best app. And in my perspective, the best app that was developed lately was a guy in a wheelchair that developed an app that indicates in which building there's a disabled toilet. If you engage citizens, half of the solution is already there, because they come up with a problem, you engage them to analyze the problem, and the problem is almost gone already. So that's why we set up a program of Smart Citizen Lab, where people can actually make the sensors themselves to measure their own problem. Collecting data on big events from people that are walking around to avoid a congestion in certain squares, to avoid dangerous situations. Another thing is there's a problem in an area, get people around the table, and one of these people came up for a solution for the bicycle problem we had. Why not using the parking spaces at night for bicycle parking instead of for car parking, and also loading bays that trucks are delivering goods to shops. Citizen is also get into people's houses and make them aware and get them on the journey to see how they can improve on an individual base the environment and the quality of their own life. Another thing is there's a lot of big companies out there that can sell you solutions, but why not invite startups into your organization and help them to find the problem, and in the end help them to define your solution. That's what we did on 10 different areas, and especially in the social domain. As I said, we've learned from our mistakes. So what we created of all the projects that weren't ready to scale or failed, we raised an innovation graveyard, and we re-evaluate every 6 months. We re-evaluate again the projects that couldn't be scaled and see if they're ready to scale now. My conclusion: make sure your city is an open platform, open innovation, open source, open data. Allow for failure and uncertainty. There's so many things going on in the world that you can't predict, so allow for that failure and uncertainty, and make sure all your solutions and all your developments are user-centric. It's a bit of a paradox that I have to fly over here to tell you how you can improve your life by, for example, reducing CO2 emission. I'd like to invite you to join our international smart city community online, and hopefully we can continue the smart city conversation and help each other, because there's too many great ideas and great solutions out there in the world, and I think collaboration has the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vermast, for sharing your vision and your experience on this matter. You already mentioned London, so now let me introduce to you our guest from London, Dr. Stephan Lorimer. He's the Smart London Strategy and Delivery Officer for the Mayor of London. What a title. He's responsible for plans and programs in smart city technologies and innovation in digital public services. He's also, together with the London Councils and the Mayor's Chief Digital Officer, the Program Manager of the London Office of Technology and Innovation. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Lorimer.
Thank you very much. I'll give this side a little bit of love. And Frans-Anton, sorry about Manhattan, as somebody who was born in New York. Thanks very much for that. But I was here to talk to you about how we're making a new Smart London plan that'll be released at London Tech Week in June 2018, which is only about 7 months ago, which for those of us who work in public policy is tomorrow. And there's a lot of things around the digital humans, around the filter bubble, around data and oil that we want to talk about. This is Ada Lovelace, and she wrote a pamphlet in 1843 about how the visible and invisible, the conscious and unconscious, and are affecting the unending changes our relationships. And of course, there's the filter bubble, and there's angry white men beyond every woman. And this is Norbert Wiener, who's an American who wrote in 1848 in a book called The Human Use of Human Beings, that he warned about a control loop that can happen and manipulate people. And that's something that's been with us for quite a long time. But he did say if we just have devices, if we interact frequently with devices, then that's something that will happen in the future, and he never thought would happen. And there's the whole data economy that we're trying to focus on as well. People say that data is the new oil, but we think that nothing could be really further from the truth, because resources are really well defined in the market, but data is something which is really is not very well defined, and it's buried in monopolies. But what does this have to do with the city and the smart city? Well, the clean lines, the traffic that's all disappeared, the sensors that are all controlling things, the artificial intelligence, and the automation changing the nature of work. Is that really what we see in the city? And it leads to us a lot of questions that we're trying to look at in the new Smart London plan. What are the business models that we want to focus on? What does it mean for sustainability? What does it mean for privacy and security and economic fairness? And what does it really mean for the governance of the city? And there's some examples that we can go through. One is air quality. We all know in London it's terrible, it's bad. The traffic right now is about 30 kilometers an hour. In 2050 it's going to be about 10. And in central London, it's going to be about 4 kilometers an hour. And I'll remind you, walking pace is about 5. That's an indication of how bad it'll be in the future. We're introducing a new toxicity charge, but we need to look at the data that we have right now. Why is somebody more polluting on one side of the boundary that costs £22.50 versus the other side of the boundary? Of course, we need to start to look at things like variable charging that the mayor's transport strategy has been looking at. We've also been trying to think about the energy and the nighttime economy. What is the data that telecoms and retailers have about the health of our shopping streets? How can we partner with them? How can we be an honest broker for private holders of data and not just ourselves as public holders of data? And how can we capture value from new products that can be developed from those? But yes, we have 33 boroughs that we want to be collaborating with over time. And this is a pilot program that we did that we called the London Office of Data Analytics that predated the program that was described to me by Rebecca. And it took us 5 months to develop data sharing agreements between all the lawyers of the boroughs to do a 2-week data science exercise. And that's the scale of the challenge that we face with so many municipalities. We need to change our approach to regulation, and we need to change our approach to procurement. This is a company called CityMapper, who's been focused on creating dynamic bus routes in London, but we don't have any ability to grant them any bus routes to do so. So they actually have to use a tourist bus license at the moment because we cannot give them a normal one. And that's an example of the difficulties that we face in trying to make a market and co-producing new business models. And there's some examples that we need to look at around percent payback towards public sector technology funds, golden shares of intellectual property that we need to look at as well and think about. Because that collaboration around digital leadership, services, data, the tech ecosystem, and the foundations that connect them all are really, really challenging between all the 33 boroughs that make up London that have their own independent mayors and councils themselves. And this is the graph that they face every day, which we call the graph of doom. And this is the funding that's coming into them from general taxation is going way down. And the net expenditure from things like adult social care, from homelessness, from all kinds of social services are rising all the time. And how do we work with the mayor that you can see here in the background, and I'm somewhere behind him in that crowd, be able to bring them together and get them to collaborate and commission new digital public services to gather data in the same way and to develop new data standards so they can get the best innovators involved with delivering digital public services like you see here. Those are the simple concepts that you have when you are a customer, when you're a citizen or you're a local business. You are a customer of a digital public service, and things like customer portals are one example of how that can be delivered. But we need the data. We need open standards. We need data sharing agreements between the boroughs. We need them to collect them in the same way. We need innovators to know what the rules of the game are to be able to engage with them, because without that, we'll never get new products to develop new digital public services. And we need to get the data together to deliver new infrastructure and improve the city. This is an example called the infrastructure mapping application that we have been developing to get all the new planned developments from the utility companies, which are all privatized in the UK, put together with the planning applications for new housing. So from January next year, we're going to start a listening exercise, and we're going to be focusing on city data, on inclusiveness, on connectivity, on the architecture and engineering sector, and the talent that we need to be able to deliver new digital public services and smart city technologies for London. So some takeaways that we have from today. Well, we do have a rich digital tradition of thinking and computing and digital technologies. We don't need to be reinventing all the time. We do need our innovators to get involved with the ideas, but not as pivots. We do need open standards and new data sharing agreements. And we need to be creative around value capture in the same way we have around land value capture in cities to be able to avoid that graph of doom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lorimer. Last but not least, we'll hear more about the international perspective from Professor Raoul Bunschoten. He's an architect and urban planner specialized in dynamic master planning and smart city development. He's also the director of Chora Berlin and professor of sustainable urban planning and urban design at the TU Berlin. Please welcome Professor Bunschoten.
Yes, I'm just waiting for the first slide. It's definitely not black. Good, but I can start. Good. Can we have the first slide starting? Yes, there we go. I decided to split my slides into 10 points and make it life a bit simpler. The first point is the second skin. I'm talking about a new city. I'm talking about all cities, not a single city, but all cities, which I together group in the term of the second city. It consists of two cosmologies. First, on the left hand, you see a simplification of climate change, which is what I have to deal with at the TU Berlin. But on the right hand, you see a simplification of the big data. And the opportunity is that the big data or digitalization is the same scale as climate change. So you could say one challenge feeds the other challenge. And you see in there, the city each city is a cutout of this amalgamated skin. So cities are incubators of growth, of course. We know that people are coming more and more to cities. Refugees, of course, need shelter, and people from the rural areas come to cities. So cities are incubators of growth and, of course, of culture as well, traditionally. So how do cities actually look like these days? How do we structure them? Well, we structure them like this. We have human organizations at the bottom that carries civilization is made out of a human organization. We have systems or infrastructures, as we have here in the title. We have urban space, the traditional urban space in which we live. And we have, of course, now we have the cloud, right, or the digital revolution, which hovers above everything. So we make this cloud out of intelligent systems, and we use these intelligent systems to innovate, to empower the cities, as the title says. And how do we actually do that? And how do we order the intelligent systems? Because smart systems, as we know, they are made up of very specific technical things like health data networks, but they're made up of many different things. And here you see a standardized form of a smart city toolkit that we have developed. In fact, I should have brought it. We supported the city of Heidelberg in the same Bitkom smart city call. And with these cards, with this toolkit, we actually claim we can do city making. But something is missing here, because we don't only work with existing cities, we also have to create the cities from the ground up, right? So we're looking for the building blocks of the cities. So actually within Smart City, we're also looking at Industry 4.0, because we need help of the whole automatization process to build cities, to build the new building blocks of cities, and to put the cities together. Effectively, IoT is the Internet of Things is landing in city construction. And here you see a provocative project we worked on that Tempelhof, as a district of culture, should become a site of a factory for such city making, in which we produce the components that have the first kind of digital responsive methods with which a city actually begins to breathe and live. Now we use so-called narrative algorithms, and there's a whole movement now away from the pure mathematical nature of algorithms towards the negotiation you need to bring all these cities together. How does the city actually negotiate with all the companies that deliver these smart systems? And how does the city decide which one is more important than the other ones? So we do that with EU partners all over Europe, but we also teach students to do this to learn this negotiation process. We've developed tools to work with this. We developed a tool called the Brain Box. We now use a different name, in which we share and control. Share and control is because what we see is, of course, the performance of smart cities. What we don't see so well is how democracy is being changed by digitalization. So we feel there's a notion of share necessary. So in the Brain Box, right, we bring people together, and we share, first of all, we negotiate through these standardized card systems, then we feed them into digitalized systems, databases that hold complete city models. we need new spaces for democracy. This is really an important point, because digitalization is changing democracy, so we need to design these spaces. We also need to see that digitalization is changing geostrategic relationships, so we work on a larger scale within this second skin, and we work on geostrategic projects where you have so-called city regions, often centered on a particular kind of conflict or a difficult situation. And here you see a map of eastern China and Taiwan, a very complex geostrategic space where we have been developing a project, Taiwan Strait Conscious Region, where we bring together a whole range of projects in what we call a design space, a design incubator for different populations to negotiate with each other what the future city can be like. We introduce games to do that. There has to be a kind of freedom to play with the factors of reality, but of course, as you know, games are the largest leisure economy today, so we need to use games as a kind of design tool, and we have started that at the TU now. So we design educational games. For example, here you see DICE with smart city components. We brought those to China. We worked on a smart city project in Chengdu. I love this picture on the side with the small children. They built the city of the future, but on the top you see one of the biggest developers of China also looking at the kind of flexibility and adaptation you get through games. And those games we use to handle the dynamic complexity, because what is happening with digitalization, that we get a constant change. It's like a flux of changes. Nothing is fixed. Every infrastructure will be changed again after 2 years. So how do we handle this complexity? And indeed, we have to make large-scale maps, interactive maps, where we begin to introduce this toolbox. On the left, you see a bar with the toolbox components. This is actually normally an animation, where you see how in the city of Chengdu in China, we say, what if we work with this cluster of the toolbox? Then on the right-hand side, you see a graph with the effects of this, the energy efficiency and so on, how we optimize reality, which of course then becomes again a cultural question. What do we want to optimize? So this is an issue of consciousness, right? Digitalization leads to consciousness. First of all, human consciousness. What do we want? Which systems do we want to apply in a city? Second of all, of machine consciousness, right? AI is a form of consciousness. We don't yet know where it goes, but we just started a project in the TU where we begin to use machine learning projects like you see here from an artist, and we're going to introduce that in modeling city structures, because what we would like to create is mayor trainings programs where we use AI not to solve things, but to simulate the complexity that mayors have to face every day in the design of smart cities. So we call it Conscious City. Thank you very much.